Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Neverdot, and today we're going to be looking at how I produced my first children's book, The Snow Day That Went Terribly Wrong, with IngramSpark Self-Publishing. IngramSpark is a self-publisher, but it also does big name publishers, which is why it is so good to choose. It has a lot of experience in the industry, it is established throughout the world, and can produce its books everywhere. The first thing you want to do with IngramSpark is, of course, register for a free account. That doesn't cost you anything. That will get you set up to start submitting books to them. Next, you want to choose how big your book is. That's very important. For a children's book author, you're going to be drawing all these things. You need to know how big these pictures have to be. And if you're doing text, you're going to need to know the layout you need. As such, pick your trim size to be what you need before you start working on it all. I picked 8.5 by 11, which I quite like. It's about a good size, and yeah, I wouldn't want to go much larger, wouldn't fit on the bookshelf. The next thing, of course, is to make your book in your software. So either use InDesign to do your layouts, or you could use Word, depending on what it is. I'm doing a children's book, so that required a lot more illustration. I used Painter and Krita for that. Krita is a free open source software for painting. Painter's, of course, from Corel. Now, once you've got it created, you need to produce a PDF according to IngramSpark specifications. Now, IngramSpark is a bit more finicky as far as self-publishers compared to the other ones like Amazon, which is a bit more hand-holding. It allows for more mistakes. IngramSpark, of course, needs you to read the specs on how it needs to be formatted before you submit it. If you don't read those specs, you might get it rejected and need to redo it and possibly pay revision costs, which you really don't want to do. I read the specs very closely many times, checked my document many times, and then I eventually got it all laid out perfectly. And when I submitted it, got it back, it was perfect, and I was really happy. Now, when I made my book, I needed to do a PDF to produce the hardcover. I also did an ebook. The ebook needs to be done in EPUB 3 format. So when you do your EPUB 3, you can output it from InDesign. If it's a children's book with text all over the place, do make sure that the text in the InDesign output matches the order on the page that you want to read it in. Now, children's books, of course, have additional considerations for ebooks. I can't get into that now, and InDesign doesn't do that for you, so you do really need to dig into that yourself. But assuming that you've done that, you need to validate your EPUB on the online EPUB validator, because if it fails that check, it's not going to pass IngramSpark's checks as well. If you're doing a hardcover, of course, you need a cover. The cover is a separate document. It's not part of your main interior document, and it needs to be based on the number of pages in your book. If you don't have enough pages, you can't produce a spine. I really wanted a spine for my book, and with 48 pages, that's the minimum to get a spine text. So I got that, and I'm really happy that it lined up perfectly on the first try. When you order your proof, and you really need to order a proof, because if you don't order a proof, you might have mistakes in your book that you aren't aware of. When people buy your book, they're going to see those mistakes, they're going to get upset, and they're probably going to return the book as faulty. That's totally your fault. You need to order a proof. The proof is a cheap option because it doesn't cost much to actually produce one book. So get your proof after you've uploaded your book, and then check to make sure that the spine text is actually aligned on the spine. If it wound up over here, fix it. Just change the image, get the new PDF uploaded, and order a new proof. Make sure you got it right. Make sure that your front page is centered, your back page is all correct. Make sure the barcode's properly there. Make sure the interior is all good, every page. You don't want to make sure that your text isn't running over the bleed. The bleed's there for a reason. It means don't touch it, you're going to bleed. The cover should be made with IngramSpark's cover generator. They will give you a PDF or Adobe Illustrator file that includes all the sizing and specifications you need to produce your cover. You need to use that. You can't just guess, and don't try, because the cover document that they give you is much larger than the actual cover, and it includes a free barcode. So do not pay for a barcode. You do need an ISBN number if you're doing anything other than personal work with these books. So get your ISBN numbers from either this website for Canadians or something like Boker for Americans. Other countries, you'll need to look that up yourselves. Sorry. You're going to have to go through a multi-step process to fill in all the details of your book. The name, the description, the age range, the category, a lot of things. All of these things are very critical for selling your book online, because all of these things will determine how your book is sold and to whom. You need to know who you want to sell, who your target market is, and generally how you want to pitch it. Now, after you've submitted your book, you have an option of setting a street date. The street date is when the book can be sold to customers. That's either online or in physical stores. Now, why would you pick a street date that is today, for instance, or in the future? First of all, you can set a street date of the current date. I did do that on my first book, and I'll tell you what my experience with that was. If you set today as your date, that means the book will be immediately available. Sort of. Immediately available as soon as it's available, which means it's kind of randomly available. The EPUB shows up the fastest. It's an electronic document, so it can just pop into all the bookstores pretty quickly. The hardcover takes a little bit of time. I think the retailers need to actually get the book ordered and have physical stock before they start showing it as available. So that takes time. That can take, for instance, Amazon, I think it took me about 6 weeks for it to show up in their store. So I had the ebook sitting there with no hardcover option, or it was for pre-order and you can't get it now. I think on the Canadian side, it's still on pre-order. Anyways, that's the experience that I had setting the street date as the current date. It was sort of filtering through the systems. I had to keep checking to see when it was available at different retailers so I could tell my potential customers, now you can buy it, maybe. If, however, you want to get a more simultaneous release when you can actually say in stores on this date, you're going to have to target a much later date. And I would recommend, based on my observations, probably 2 months to guarantee it's available everywhere all at the same time. An important consideration with books is returns. A lot of stores won't accept your book or even stock it if they can't return it. Now, returning has a bit of a cost to you. If your book is returned, you are going to be stuck with the printing costs of that book. You have to cover that. For ebooks, that's fine. That costs the same to give and return. For printed books, of course, you're just out that money, and that's unfortunate. Now, you've got that step of returning it, and you have to pay for that. But you have an option here now. Do you return the book and pay for the shipping, which IngramSpark will handle for you, but it's expensive, and especially if it's coming from a foreign country that you don't live anywhere near. Or you have an option of skipping that shipping. Well, how do you skip the shipping? You can reduce it to 0, but it's a little tricky. You see, when IngramSpark chooses to return a book and not handle the shipping, they just do this. They burn it. The book is destroyed. So you have the option of return the book or destroy the book. When I uploaded my books to IngramSpark's process, I initially had some errors reported. The EPUB had a few technical problems. Now, since these problems were detected with the automated systems, that didn't hit me for any revision costs. If computers are finding errors, you can fix the errors, resubmit a new file, get it revalidated, and if it passes, it's all good. No extra costs. It's only when you have a physical human reviewer find a problem, like the layout is bad, that you do have to probably charge $25 or something per edit. As far as how I made the book interior, I think I'll be covering that in a separate video, so look for that later. And also I'll talk about how I did my EPUB as well. So that was my experience with IngramSpark. I'm very happy I went with them. I was going to go with Amazon initially. That's what I thought was a guaranteed option. It was the easiest to use, well spoken of by everyone. I even saw reviews of people with children's books that were full color and on Amazon. It was great, and really the only thing that stopped me was the hardcover restriction. Amazon does not do hardcover right now. Don't know why. It is a bit more difficult. It takes a bit more time to do hardcover with IngramSpark. A couple days maybe. And that's not really a big deal. I will be going with IngramSpark for my next book. Book 2 will be showing up in stores early next year in 2017. This is book 1. So until next time, see ya.